Her name was Gloria, 72 years old. She had raised 4 children, buried a husband, survived things that would have broken people half her age. She had a laugh that filled rooms. She had a memory, her family always said this, like a steel trap. Birthdays, names, the details of conversations from 20 years ago retrieved with the ease of someone reaching for something on a nearby shelf. And then one morning her daughter called her by her name 3 times across the breakfast table before she looked up. Not because she was distracted, because she had not heard it, not the sound. She had heard the sound, she had not recognized it as her name. That was the first morning. There were others. The keys found in the refrigerator. The sentence began with complete confidence and abandoned halfway through, the end of it simply gone. The faces of people she had known for decades arriving in her mind without their names attached, like photographs separated from their labels. Her daughter took her to the doctor. Then to a specialist, then to a neurologist. The neurologist sat across from Gloria with a file and the kind of careful, practiced gentleness that people develop when they deliver news they have delivered many times before. Early cognitive decline, he said, consistent with the beginning stages of dementia. Talked about what to expect. He talked about medication to slow the progression. He talked about planning. He used the word management. Not recovery, not reversal, management. Gloria drove home. Sat in her car in the driveway for a long time before going inside. She did not cry. She was too frightened to cry. What happened over the following 6 months is not a miracle. I need you to understand that from the beginning. What happened was science. Biology. The correction of something that should never have been missed. And by the time Gloria returned to that same neurologist, 6 months later, with her daughter beside her, with a new set of test results in a folder on her lap, he could not explain what he was looking at. Not because it was impossible. Because nobody had told him it was possible. Stay with me. Because Gloria's story is not rare. It is happening right now to people you love, in waiting rooms where the word asterisk management is being used when the word reversible should be used instead. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. Let me tell you something about the word dementia that most people are never told. Dementia is not a single disease. It is a description of symptoms, a collection of cognitive changes, memory loss, confusion, difficulty with language, impaired reasoning, that can be produced by many different underlying causes. Some of those causes are neurodegenerative, progressive, genuinely irreversible with current medical knowledge. Alzheimer's disease falls into this category, but some of the causes that produce symptoms so similar to early Alzheimer's that they are routinely misdiagnosed as early Alzheimer's, are completely, measurably, documentably reversible. A landmark review published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease identified over 36 potentially reversible contributors to cognitive decline in older adults. 36. Nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, inflammatory conditions, sleep disorders, medication side effects, toxic exposures, metabolic disruptions, any one of which, alone or in combination, can produce a clinical presentation that looks, on a standard assessment, like early dementia. And the standard diagnostic pathway for cognitive decline in older adults in most healthcare systems does not systematically screen for most of them. It screens for the irreversible kind. It finds the symptoms. It delivers the management plan. And it sends people home. A 2019 study published in the journal Nutrients found that among adults over 65 presenting with mild cognitive impairment, the clinical stage just before a dementia diagnosis, a significant proportion had measurable nutritional deficiencies that were directly correlated with their cognitive symptoms. Not associated with, correlated with. Meaning, the more severe the deficiency, the more severe the cognitive symptoms. Meaning, the correction of the deficiency produced measurable improvement in the cognitive symptoms. Meaning, what was being called early dementia in a significant number of those patients was, more precisely, a brain that was not getting what it needed to function. Not a brain that was dying, a brain that was starving. That that distinction between a brain that is degenerating and a brain that is depleted. It is one of the most important distinctions in modern medicine, and it is being missed every day. In consulting rooms where the time pressure is real, the diagnostic tools are limited, and the word management is easier to say than the question nobody thought to ask. What is this brain missing? Gloria's reversal was not produced by a single intervention. It was produced by the identification and correction of 3 specific depletions, 3 things her brain had been quietly starving for while her symptoms were being attributed to aging and irreversible disease. I am going to name all 3. I am going to explain what each one does inside the aging brain, and I am going to tell you exactly where to find each one in food, because this is not about expensive supplements. This is about what you eat. Vitamin B12 deficiency is the single most commonly missed cause of reversible cognitive decline in adults over 65, not the most obscure, not the most rare, the most commonly missed. Here is why it matters so profoundly for the brain. B12 is required for the production of myelin, the protective sheath that surrounds nerve fibers in the brain and throughout the nervous system. Myelin is what allows electrical signals to travel efficiently between neurons. It is, in the most literal sense, the insulation around your brain's wiring. When B12 is depleted, myelin degrades. Nerve signal transmission slows. The brain begins to misfire. And the symptoms that emerge, the memory gaps, the cognitive fog, the difficulty retrieving words and names, the confusion are neurologically indistinguishable from the early stages of Alzheimer's disease on a standard clinical assessment. After the age of 60, B12 absorption drops dramatically, not because of dietary deficiency alone, but because of a decline in the production of intrinsic factor, the gastric protein required to absorb B12 from food. A person can be eating adequate B12 and still be severely deficient, because their body has lost the mechanism to absorb it. This affects an estimated 10 to 30% of adults over 60, and the standard annual blood panel, again, does not always catch it. The reference range used by most laboratories includes levels that researchers now consider functionally deficient for neurological health. Your test result says normal. Your brain is starving. 2016 study published in Neurology found that older adults with low B12 levels had significantly greater brain volume loss over 5 years, specifically in the regions associated with memory and cognitive function, compared to those with adequate levels, brain volume loss, from a deficiency that costs almost nothing to correct. Food sources that maximize B12 absorption in older adults. Clams, the single most concentrated dietary source of B12 available. 3 ounces of cooked clams delivers over 1,400% of the daily requirement. Sardines, affordable, accessible, and extraordinarily dense in B12, alongside the omega-3s that independently support brain health. Grass-fed beef liver, historically one of the most nutrient-dense foods consumed by human beings across cultures, and now largely absent from the modern diet. Eggs, specifically the yolk, which contains B12 alongside choline, the nutrient directly required for the synthesis of acetylcholine, the primary neurotransmitter of memory. For people over 65 with absorption concerns, a sublingual B12 supplement bypasses the intrinsic factor requirement entirely, delivering the vitamin directly through the mucous membrane under the tongue. This is not complicated. It is overlooked. Your brain is approximately 60% fat. Not metaphorically, literally. By dry weight, the human brain is predominantly fat, and the most abundant structural fat in the brain's gray matter is DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. DHA is what the brain uses to build and maintain its cell membranes, the walls of every neuron. It is what keeps those membranes fluid, flexible, and permeable to the signals passing through them. Without adequate DHA, neuronal membranes become rigid. Signal transmission degrades. inflammation in brain tissue increases, and the brain begins to lose the structural integrity that underlies clear, efficient thought. After the age of 60, DHA levels in the brain decline naturally, and the body's ability to convert plant-based omega-3s into the DHA the brain actually requires becomes significantly less efficient. This means that flaxseed and walnuts, often cited as omega-3 sources, are not sufficient for the aging brain. The brain needs to perform DHA. From marine sources, a landmark study from Rush University Medical Center in Chicago followed 915 adults over an average of 5 years. Those who consumed fatty fish at least once per week had a 60% lower rate of Alzheimer's disease compared to those who rarely or never ate fish, 60% not from a pharmaceutical intervention, from fish eaten once a week. A separate study from the University of California, Los Angeles, found that adults with higher blood levels of DHA had significantly greater volume in the hippocampus, the brain region most critical for memory formation and most vulnerable to Alzheimer's-related atrophy, compared to those with lower DHA levels, larger hippocampus, from a fatty acid found in fish. Food sources: wild-caught salmon, 2 to 3 servings per week, wild-caught specifically. The DHA content of farmed salmon is significantly lower. Sardines, again. Affordable, available, and among the most DHA-dense foods on Earth, mackerel. Herring. Anchovies, small, cold-water, wild-caught fish, the same fish that have sustained coastal populations with remarkably low rates of cognitive decline for generations. Your grandparents who lived near the sea and ate fish several times a week were not following a protocol. They were following instinct. The instinct was right. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body, including, and this is what matters for today's conversation, the regulation of NMDA receptors in the brain. NMDA receptors are the primary mechanism through which the brain forms new memories and maintains synaptic plasticity, the ability of neural connections to strengthen, adapt, and reorganize in response to new information and experience. When magnesium levels are adequate, NMDA receptors function properly. The brain forms memories efficiently. Synaptic connections are maintained and strengthened through use. When magnesium is depleted, NMDA receptor function degrades. Memory formation becomes inefficient. Synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and learn, declines. An estimated 68% of Americans over 60 are chronically deficient in magnesium. And standard blood tests, again, miss most of it. Only 1% of the body's magnesium is in the blood. Testing blood magnesium tells you almost nothing about cellular magnesium status, which is where it matters. Your test says normal. Your neurons are depleted. A 2016 study published in the journal Neuron found that elevating brain magnesium levels through supplementation with magnesium L-threonate, the only form of magnesium that crosses the blood-brain barrier efficiently, produced significant improvements in both short-term and long-term memory in aging subjects. It also produced measurable improvements in synaptic density, the number of active connections between neurons, more connections. From a mineral, food sources. Dark leafy greens, spinach, Swiss chard, kale. 1 cup of cooked spinach delivers 157 mg of magnesium, approximately 37% of the daily requirement. Pumpkin seeds, among the most magnesium-dense foods available. 1 ounce delivers nearly 40% of the daily requirement. Dark chocolate, minimum 70% cacao. Yes, genuinely, avocado. Black beans, almonds. For people over 65 with significant cognitive symptoms, magnesium L-threonate as a supplement specifically, not magnesium oxide or citrate, which do not cross the blood-brain barrier with the same efficiency. Before I continue, I need to pause for one moment. Everything I am sharing with you today, the depletions, the misdiagnoses, the information that is sitting in academic journals while people are being handed management plans in consulting rooms. This is a pattern. It is a pattern of information being withheld, of simple, affordable, accessible solutions being overlooked in favor of complex, expensive, pharmaceutical ones. I have written a book about exactly this pattern. It is called 25 Hidden Signs You Are Being Manipulated and How to Stop It. It is not just about personal relationships. It is about every system, medical, nutritional, institutional, that has learned to manage your dependence rather than support your freedom. The link is in the description below this video. Pay what it is worth to you. Now, let me tell you what happened to Gloria. Gloria's daughter found a functional medicine practitioner 8 weeks after the neurologist's appointment, not because she rejected the neurologist's diagnosis, because she could not accept that the conversation was over. The practitioner ordered tests that the standard pathway had not ordered. A full B12 panel, not just serum B12, but methylmalonic acid and homocysteine levels. The markers that reveal functional B12 deficiency even when serum levels appear borderline normal. Gloria's methylmalonic acid was elevated. Significantly, her homocysteine, a compound that rises when B12 and folate are insufficient, and that research has directly linked to accelerated brain atrophy, was nearly double the optimal range. A red blood cell fatty acid profile, not a standard cholesterol panel. An actual measurement of the fatty acids present in her cell membranes. Her DHA was critically low. She had not eaten fish regularly in over a decade. Her late husband had disliked it. The habit had simply stopped, and a cellular magnesium assessment depleted. Consistently and significantly, 3 depletions, each one produces cognitive symptoms independently, all 3 present simultaneously. In a woman who had been told she had early dementia, the protocol was not complicated. Sublingual B12 daily. Bypassing the absorption problem entirely. Wild-caught sardines and salmon, 3 times per week. Non-negotiable. Magnesium L-threonate. Every evening before bed, dark leafy greens daily. Cooked in olive oil for absorption. Pumpkin seeds added to her breakfast. Dark chocolate, the real kind, as her afternoon treat. That was it. No prescription, no clinical trial, no experimental intervention, food, and 2 targeted supplements for the depletions that food alone could not fully correct at her age. 6 weeks in, her daughter noticed the first change. Gloria finished a sentence she had started. Not remarkable to anyone who had not watched her lose them for the previous 18 months. Remarkable beyond words to someone who had. 8 weeks in, she called her granddaughter by name from across a room. The granddaughter cried. Gloria laughed. That laugh filled the rooms. 12 weeks in, she was reading again. Novels. Her lifelong companion, abandoned when the words stopped connecting properly. At 6 months, at the appointment where her neurologist sat across from her with the new cognitive assessment results in his hands, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, and Gloria remembers this precisely, because her memory had come back, these results are not consistent with a progressive condition. He did not say she had been misdiagnosed. He did not say the original assessment was wrong. He said the results were not consistent with progression. Gloria looked at him across the desk. I know, she said. I fed my brain what it was missing. I need to say something clearly. Gloria's neurologist was not a bad doctor. He was a good doctor operating within a system that does not allocate the time, the tests, or the training to look for what Gloria actually had. The average specialist appointment for cognitive assessment lasts between 20 and 45 minutes. The standard cognitive tests used, the MMSE, the MoCA, assess the presence and severity of symptoms. They do not assess causes. The standard blood panel ordered alongside those tests does not include methylmalonic acid, does not include homocysteine, does not include red blood cell fatty acid profiles, does not include cellular magnesium. It includes the tests that are covered. The tests are fast. The tests that fit inside the 20-minute window and the standard billing code. This is not a conspiracy. This is a healthcare system designed around the management of chronic conditions, not the investigation of reversible ones. A system in which a dementia diagnosis leads to a management pathway that generates ongoing appointments, ongoing prescriptions, ongoing dependency. A system in which the question of what this brain is missing, a question that could be answered with a handful of additional blood tests costing a fraction of a single specialist appointment, is simply not built into the standard pathway, not because the doctors are malicious, because the system was not designed to ask for it. And the people who design healthcare systems, the institutions that set the diagnostic guidelines, that determine which tests are standard and which are additional, that shape what a 20-minute cognitive assessment includes and excludes, those institutions have financial relationships with the pharmaceutical companies whose products treat the conditions the system is designed to find, not the conditions it is not designed to look for. This is documented. This is not speculation. And the cost of it, measured in the Glorias sitting in driveways unable to cry, is one that no billing code has ever captured. Here is what I want you to do, not in 6 months, not after your next routine appointment, this week. Step 1. If you or someone you love is experiencing cognitive symptoms, memory gaps, word retrieval difficulty, confusion, reduced mental sharpness, do not accept a standard blood panel as a complete investigation. Ask specifically for methylmalonic acid levels, homocysteine levels. These 2 markers reveal functional B12 deficiency that serum B12 alone will miss, a red blood cell omega-3 index. This measures the DHA actually present in your cell membranes, not just what you have eaten recently. A red blood cell magnesium test, not serum magnesium. Red blood cell magnesium. Write these down. Take this list to your appointment. You are entitled to ask for these tests. Your doctor may not order all of them, but you are entitled to ask. And your asking may be the most important thing that happens in that appointment. Step 2. This week, add wild-caught sardines or salmon to at least 2 meals. Today, if possible. Step 3. Return the egg yolk to your breakfast. The choline in the yolk is the direct precursor to the neurotransmitter your memory runs on. Step 4. Add 1 cup of dark leafy greens to your daily eating. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, cooked in olive oil. Every day. Step 5. Add pumpkin seeds to something your breakfast, a snack, a salad, 1 ounce. Daily. Step 6. If you are over 65 and cognitive symptoms are present, speak to a functional medicine practitioner or an integrative physician specifically, not instead of your neurologist. Alongside, you deserve a complete investigation, not a management plan written before the investigation is finished. What Gloria's story represents, the gap between what the system offers and what the body actually needs. It is something I have spent a long time thinking about and writing about. My book, 25 Hidden Signs You Are Being Manipulated and How to Stop It, is not just about the manipulation that happens between people. It is about recognizing the moment when a system, any system, is managing your dependence rather than supporting your freedom. The medical system that labels and manages rather than investigates and restores. The food system that replaces ancient wisdom with industrial products and calls it progress. The cultural system that tells you decline is inevitable when the research says otherwise. Learning to recognize those patterns in every area of your life is what this book is about. The link is in the description below. It is offered on a pay-what-you-want basis. Because the people who need it most should never be priced out of it. I want to say one more thing before we close. Gloria is not alone. The Alzheimer's Association estimates that of the 55 million people worldwide currently living with a dementia diagnosis, a meaningful proportion may have reversible or partially reversible conditions that were never fully investigated. We do not know the exact number, because the investigation was never done. What we know is that the 3 depletions I described today, B12, DHA, and magnesium, are among the most prevalent nutritional deficiencies in adults over 60 worldwide. We know they produce cognitive symptoms. We know those symptoms are routinely attributed to irreversible disease. We know the depletions are correctable. And we know from Gloria, from the research, from the quiet revolution happening in functional and integrative medicine right now, that correction produces results that standard medicine calls unexplainable. They are not unexplainable. They are simply the result of asking a question that the standard pathway forgot to ask. What is this brain missing? Ask it. For yourself. For the people you love. Before the management plan is written. Before the conversation is closed. Before someone sits in a driveway too frightened to cry. If you have watched this far, you already know someone. A parent. A grandparent. A friend. A neighbor. Someone whose memory has been changing. Whose sharpness has been dimming. Who has been told, or who you are afraid is about to be told, that what is happening to them is simply aging, simple progression, simple management. Share this video with them today, not because it will replace their medical care, because it might be the question that changes their medical care. The question nobody thought to ask, what is this brain missing? If this video helped you, give it a like. It tells the algorithm to carry Gloria's story to the people who are still sitting in waiting rooms being given answers that are not yet complete. Subscribe to the Hidden Truths Life, because this is one truth among many, and we are not finished. The link to 25 hidden signs you are being manipulated and how to stop it is in the description right now. Everything happening in this video, the missed diagnosis, the incomplete investigation, the management plan written before the questions were asked, is one of the 25 patterns this book was written to help you recognize. Wherever it is happening in your life, go get it. And